Now let's look at respiration. So this is something that we want to look at. Again, this is very important. Respiration is a topic that shows up almost every exam, so let's have a look. Aerobic respiration, or just respiration in general, is an exothermic reaction. So when I said endothermic and exothermic, endothermic is when you take in energy and exothermic is when you release energy. Aerobic respiration is an exothermic reaction because it releases energy. So aerobic respiration, extremely important because it continuously occurs in living cells and it allows cells to live because it provides continuous energy. And we need to know the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So with aerobic respiration, it uses oxygen and completely is the keyword, completely oxidizes it. So the simple equation we have is basically the exact opposite of photosynthesis. C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives you 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water, H2O. Anaerobic respiration takes place without oxygen. So it's incomplete oxidation of glucose. So you're going to have to highlight that word. Aerobic is completely oxidizing it using oxygen. Anaerobic is incomplete oxidation without oxygen. There are two types of anaerobic respirations you need to know, and that's one in the humans, in our muscles, and one is in plants and yeast cells. In the ones in our muscles is when glucose is converted to lactic acid. Now, this is good for applying questions. So there was a question earlier about the heart cell, the heart, like the coronary heart disease. This is where it kind of applies a little bit. With anaerobic respiration, you produce lactic acid. And whenever, I don't know if you guys feel this, but when you're doing exercise, sometimes your muscles may feel sore. This is the reason. Your muscles will feel sore because you're producing lactic acid. You're running out of oxygen, so your body's relying on anaerobic respiration. So then you produce lactic acid, this goes into your muscles, and you're going to start to feel muscle fatigue, causing your muscles to feel sore. That's kind of like how it's kind of cool, I would think. I think that's cool. Anaerobic respiration in plants and yeast cells, the glucose is converted to ethanol and carbon dioxide. And this specific example, you need to know where the anaerobic respiration in yeast cells, we use this process called fermentation. So this ethanol and carbon dioxide produced usually is for things like alcohol or bread. So you do need to know that anaerobic respiration in yeast cells, you need to know it's called fermentation, and you need to know that they produce things like alcohol and bread. So the ethanol produced is basically alcohol that adults drink. So that is that. One thing to also point out, the aerobic respiration in eukaryotes, they do take place in the mitochondria. Sometimes they do ask you where it does take place, so that's something to keep in mind. It is in the mitochondria. But this is aerobic respiration and most of it. And this is only in eukaryotes, just to, eukaryotes, aerobic respiration, it's in the mitochondria. That's just something to point out. Okay. Right. This is a really good question that involves both photosynthesis and respiration. But before are we gonna go through cell division such as mitosis and meiosis? I don't think so because I think that is mainly triple sciences, and this one is obviously both combined and triple. However, if you have any questions on this topic, feel free to ask and I can try and answer it at the end of the biology session. So yeah, if you have any questions on mitosis and meiosis, ask away in the chat and I will answer them in a bit, but we'll focus on respiration now. So here is an exam question. I'll give you guys maybe a minute, or I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to look at this question, try and answer it, and then I'll go through it. Okay, let's have a go at just explaining it very quickly. So first question is asking you why the concentration of carbon dioxide in the tube stays the same between day 0 and day 5. Based on the question, we know there's pondweed and a pond snail in the boiling tube. So the pond snail is respiration. The pondweed is also respiring, but it is also carrying out photosynthesis. What do we know about respiration and photosynthesis? We know that respiration, we're going to be using, we're going to be taking in oxygen and we're going to be releasing carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis is taking in carbon dioxide at the same time. So that explains why there's no change, because for photosynthesis in the pondweed is taking in carbon dioxide, and the pond snail and the pondweed also respiring, releasing carbon dioxide. So this causes no change because they're releasing and taking in at the same time. So that's kind of the explanation for that. 2 marks. Second thing, suggest why the concentration of the carbon dioxide increased between day 5 and 10. So this is what I meant by like suggest question. It's not really like your like topic knowledge, but more based off reading off the graph. So it's asking you why concentration has increased. What do you know about between day 5 and 10? It tells you after 5 days, the scientists completely covered the boiling tube with black paper. When you completely cover the boiling tube with black paper, no light's going in. That's the first thing I can think of. No light, absolutely no light, because it's black paper and there's nothing going in. If there's no light, what process doesn't happen? Photosynthesis. So my thought is, okay, if there's no photosynthesis, no carbon dioxide is being taken in, and therefore it's only carbon dioxide being released through respiration. Therefore, there's an increase. That is the second question. Third question, this one I'm just going to explain to you because this was not covered earlier, but it's asking you to explain the death of the pond snail caused by the concentration of carbon dioxide to increase after day 10. I believe this is only, I'm unsure about this. I think this is mainly triple science, but I'm unsure. Don't take my word for it. But here it tells you this is when a pond snail dies after day 10. What happens when an organism dies? Essentially, it decays. It gets broken down, it gets decomposed. And this is being broken down by things like bacteria or things like decomposers. So when these are being broken down, these decomposers of bacteria do respire as they're being broken down, therefore releasing a bunch of carbon dioxide. So the answer to this question is the snail dies. It is being decayed or being decomposed by these decomposers. And therefore, these decomposers respire. They respire, releasing carbon dioxide, and therefore causes the increase in carbon dioxide. That is the way to explain it. But the extra information that I basically just told you is that when an organism dies, it gets decayed and broken down by these decomposers and bacteria, and they respire. So here are the answers. Again, you will have these slides so you can have a look at that. But